Have you ever forgotten to release the parking brake and take off about your business only to realize you've been cruising around town with one foot on the gas, all while your brake was slowing you down? It's really frustrating. But that's what it's like to grow as a church or an organization with leaders that don't have the leadership quotient or capacity needed to lead their particular team or department into the next season of growth, simultaneously with all the other teams and departments that make up all of the moving parts. Whether your church is currently growing or it isn't, you should really be asking yourself this question. Do I have the leadership quotient to lead our team or department or church into this next season of growth? Am I going to help our church to gain speed, or am I going to slow us down? Am I the gas or am I the brakes? In today's episode, we're going to give you 4 things that will help you to be really best prepared for your next season of growth as a leader. You ready to do this? I know we are. Let's do this. Welcome to the Small Town Big Church Leadership Podcast, a place for pastors, church leaders, and volunteers to grow themselves and the local church. We're pastors Brad and Misty Hilton, church planters in rural America.
So one of our mentors, Pastor Ed Young, which is from Fellowship Church in Dallas, he has always said, for years since he's been our mentor, that you should lead your organization like it is 2 to 3 times larger than it is right now. And so I want you to think about that wherever you're at, whether you're a church, and which is what we are, or you're just an organization, you're a business, whatever. If you were leading 2 to 3 times larger, what would need to change? And this is a question I often ask myself because we are in a church that has been and continues to see rapid growth.
Rapid growth, continual change.
Yes,
constantly.
almost like stupid growth, if you will. There are seasons of growth that is just like...
Just keeps your head spinning.
Yes,
nonstop.
Supernatural, all these people coming through the doors. And as that's happening, if you're not careful, you become the lid. And what I mean by that is the people are coming, which means our teams are within the organization. They've got to continue to grow. They've got to expand. Right. And as a leader, like for instance, maybe you're leading a team right now and you've got 5 people on your team and you're pretty comfortable. You know the 5 people, you have a great relationship with those 5 people. You all seem to be executing and doing a great job. But what if that team doubled in size or tripled in size overnight, and you needed to go to 10 volunteers or 15 volunteers or departments, right? How would your leadership need to change? That's what we're really talking about today. John Maxwell, which is the leadership guru, he's written so many books. He wrote a book a long time ago called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And the very first law that he talks about is the law of the lid. And basically every one of us have a lid on our potential that's only lifted by our own willingness to learn how to lead.
It reminds me of when I was probably about 9 years old, and my big brother Sean had a pet turtle. This was a little, they call them red-eared gliders, that we call them a paint turtle, and they have the orange, marking on the side of their head.
Sure.
And a tiny little guy. He was really cute, about 3 inches in diameter, just adorable little turtle. And my brother kept him in a glass bowl that was probably, maybe 12 inches in diameter. And Jarvis, little Jarvis. That was his name, Jarvis. Little Jarvis, he stayed the same size. It seemed like forever. And I got to thinking one day, don't these turtles get
Shouldn't they grow?
Shouldn't they get any bigger than, just a couple inches?
Right.
And my brother told me, no, he's never going to get any bigger living in that bowl. I'm like, that's crazy. Why not? And he explained to me that the size of the bowl, the size of the environment that
He was
turtle is in
Yeah.
is going to be the lid or be the limit to the size in which that turtle
Wow.
can grow.
That's crazy.
And I thought that is one of the coolest things
Yeah.
I've ever heard. But then I realized that's really sad, though.
Right.
Like, why should this turtle's life be
It'd
limited?
be limited. Yep.
Because of the environment that it's in.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, and what we're talking about today is a lot of times we ourselves are the lid or the limit. We set the capacity to ourselves
Right.
in our own leadership, and we
And
slow
in
ourselves
doing
down.
that, to the team that we lead.
We do it to our team. We do it to our church.
Or to the
Yeah,
organization.
to the organization as a whole.
As well. And
Yeah.
so let's kind of dive in today. We're going to give you 4 things that you need to look at to prepare yourself to grow personally so that you are ready for that new season of growth.
Yeah. Okay, so this leads us to our first point today, and that is evaluate where you are. And
big.
this is really hard because we all have blind spots.
Right.
As leaders, we have blind spots
Yep.
in marriage. We have blind spots in our relationships, of course.
Yeah.
As employees, we all have blind spots.
Yes.
And it takes humbling ourselves and recognizing, okay, there's definitely things that I need to work on. There's
Right.
things that I'm just not very good at. There's things maybe that I do or don't do in my leadership, and I don't even see it.
Right.
Because I'm oblivious, because I'm in the trenches, I'm doing my own thing, and I just don't realize, the impact or the negative impact, or that I have
Right.
on other team members or on systems within our organization. A lot of
Right.
times, it takes just stepping back
Yeah.
and looking at yourself objectively and saying, okay, I'm just going to have a real come to Jesus moment with myself. I'm going to be really honest, which takes, setting your pride aside.
Right.
And realizing, there's some areas where I absolutely need to improve. I do this constantly.
We only all have 24 hours in a given day.
Yeah, and so many days in a week.
If you are an entrepreneur or you're a church planter or you're a pastor or maybe you are leading at a high capacity and there's just a lot on your plate, as you grow as a leader, you learn to take on more and more and more, and you might even be executing it and you're doing it. But then there comes a point where it's not that you can't do it, it's that you don't have enough time to do it all. And then you do become,
it well.
Yes, and
do it
then
well.
you do become the lid. Yeah. But you have to be willing to have that hard conversation with yourself. And I would say you need to go to someone you trust. Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's your employer, maybe it's the lead above you, and say, listen, I'm going to set my feelings aside. I want you to help me to evaluate where I'm at because I want to go farther. And so I really want you to be honest with me in where are my blind spots? Where do I need to get better? What do I not see, right?
Yeah.
And if you are with a trusted person, they have your best interest in mind, that is going to help you so much. And it's hard. It still is hard because we have those conversations and sometimes you want to get defensive and be like, no, like that's not me. And a smart leader is going to help you with one or two. I mean, if there's lots of things we need to improve
If there's a long,
on,
huge list, then
that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're going to head into our next point. And the second point is to set short-term goals.
Yeah.
Okay. After you have evaluated, after you've had those conversations, maybe there's 2 or 3 things max
that you really need to focus
that
on.
you need to focus on.
Yeah.
Okay, listen to me. I am a go-getter, man. I could make myself a list of 10 things right now,
Right.
but we'll all get bogged down. And so what are the top things that you need to work on? You need to choose 1 to 3. Write it down. Put it in front of yourself, okay? Somewhere that you're going to see it so that you can constantly keep in mind, this is where I'm headed, all right? And so even like for me, right now, we have done this exercise ourselves. And there are some things that I need to train some people and delegate some things so that I'm not the lid in some areas.
Right.
I have to keep that in front of myself because if I don't, the day just gets away from me, right? And I'm busy all day long, but if I'm busy, but I'm not focused on these short-term goals, I am not going to accomplish them. And as the growth happens, I'm not going to be prepared. And so then as we look at the third thing, okay, the third thing is going to be establishing keystone habits.
Yeah, this is big.
Now, keystone habits are changes or habits that people make that trigger this domino effect of positive change in various areas of one's life, okay? This comes from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now, if you haven't read this book,
It's a great book.
it is a great book. It is not it's not like a leadership read, if you will, but my goodness, it will help you in your leadership.
Personal
It will
development.
help you in any area. And I'll tell you, it's not a Christian author, but the habits that he talks about in this is amazing. It will help you in every area of your life. But when we look about keystone habits, we're talking about those small choices that they lead to this cascade of actions, okay? So I want to kind of help you understand what I'm talking about. If we're looking at personally growing so that we are able to lead in a season of growth, as you have evaluated, as you have set goals, now you need to set habits into place that help you to get to where you need to be based on those goals and that evaluation. And so a lot of times when we talk about things like this, people get overwhelmed because you're like, oh, I don't have time. Like, my life is already busy. Like, my schedule is already full. And here's what I want to help you to understand with keystone habits. It is not about just adding more stuff to your already busy schedule. I want you to look at your schedule as it is. And I want you to think about very small things that you could do. For instance, if you are not currently doing a leadership read, listen, leaders are readers. Period.
And readers could come in all shapes and sizes. We're talking about consuming leadership content.
Yes. When
You
I
could be
say
reading books, you can be listening
Yes.
to podcasts, you can be watching videos on
Exactly.
YouTube. Consume
Leadership
content continually.
So let me just give you a very small example of something we literally do, okay? We challenged all of our leaders this year we bought them this book, the John Maxwell Daily Reader. This is literally like a very short read. We're talking 3 to 5 minutes.
Less
okay?
than that, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, probably.
But here's what's interesting. How many out of the 60 to 80 people that got this book have literally been reading it every single day? I probably would be disappointed to know that percentage.
Right.
And yet it doesn't take. We scroll on Facebook and waste more time on social media than we do improving ourselves as a leader.
Good point.
So here's what you have to do, okay? And this is what I'm talking about with Keystone Habits. If you already have some habit established, and good grief, you all have habits. We all do, right? Maybe you sit down and eat breakfast every morning at your coffee table before work. Maybe that's when you pick up this read while you're eating your oatmeal, you read the 3-minute leadership devo. For me, after I read my Bible, during that time, at the end of my Bible study, before I pray, I take my daily reader and I read it because it's already within an established habit. I'm not trying to think about it later. I wouldn't think about it. So every day I have made that a part of my schedule. Another thing you can do when we talk about podcasts, we talk about audiobooks, okay? YouTube videos containing great leadership content. If you're already going and working out, or you have a commute to work, or you go for a walk after dinner in the evening, throw in some earbuds.
Yeah, that's huge.
And spend 15 minutes listening to that podcast or going through a great leadership read. Guys, you have no idea the amount of change that will happen in you personally.
The cascade effect that these habits will have in your own life and in your ministry will blow your mind.
Yes.
And back to what you said just a second ago, we think that we don't have time for things like this.
Right.
But you can't afford to not make time for things like this.
That's right.
We waste more time than we realize. We all do.
Yep.
You might think you're the most effective, most productive person on the planet. I promise you, there's still more time. We spend, like you said, we spend so much time. I say we as in society in general. I don't personally spend a ton of time on social, but most people do. Most people spend a lot of time watching TV. I don't know what the current statistics are, but it used to be 6 hours a day. People are watching TV. So you just think about, we have way more time than we realize. And if you'll just incorporate these tiny habits that make a huge difference, your leadership will thank you, and your team will grow, and you'll be able to grow with your church.
And the final thing I want to just say about, the keystone habit is you also want to make sure that you have the habit of being around great mentors.
That's huge.
Get in with a group of people that are going where you want to go.
A community or a network.
Yes. That is going to inspire you. That's going to challenge you. You need to be around that in order for you to personally constantly stay on that track of moving forward, preparing for that growth.
Yeah, and personally, we're a part of what's called C3 Global, and they say it's where no pastor stands alone. And we are surrounded, we are inundated with a community of pastors and church leaders, and there's people that we have on speed dial. We're just a call away. If we're struggling or we're need advice or counsel or just prayer, we have that, and you need that. So whatever that looks like for you, make sure that you have that community. Make sure that you have a few people just a phone call away that can help you to help you navigate through change as a leader.
Well, and I would say if you are a church like we are, as a church, you need to provide that for your people. Meaning you should be having those opportunities. We do it through huddles, we do it through trainings, we do it, with leadership roundtables, but you need to make sure you have that in place for your volunteers so that they can have great mentors around them, which those mentors should be the leaders above them.
Absolutely, but if you're a pastor,
yes,
and especially a rural pastor, I think rural pastors especially are some of the loneliest people on the planet because leadership in itself is lonely, but when you're leading in rural America, it can be really lonely. If you're in the city, that you usually have a good support system of other pastors that you can call on, but as rural pastors, you need to make sure that you're a part of a network and you have people that are just really a phone call away to help you.
Absolutely. Okay, so then let's wrap it up with the fourth thing that we need to have in place if we are going to prepare for the new season of growth, and that is embrace change. Change is a part of growth.
It's
we
inevitable.
talk about it all the time.
We talk about it a lot.
There's a growth cycle, and it is change, conflict, growth. We've done a video on it. We can link it in there for you. But change is inevitable when there is growth. And so you as a leader, you have to be willing to change. You personally have to be willing to change the way that you lead. You have to be willing to change and adapt as the organization changes and as it grows. What you did when your church had 50 people is not the same thing you can do when you have 500 people or 1,500 people. You have to adapt and embrace the change.
Okay, let's touch on that just for a second. You and I have been in ministry for over 20 years together. And we have seen so many, and if you're watching this, and if you're a pastor, if you're in leadership, in ministry, you've seen a massive decline in denominations. We've been seeing it for years. And I've noticed what I contribute to that decline is that a lot of churches are still operating the same way they were 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Still doing the same. And 40 years ago, it worked.
Yes.
40 years ago, man, it was the fuel on the fire. Your foot was on the gas pedal, and that church was going and growing. But people change.
The culture
changes. Society changes. Things that were relevant then are not relevant now. The word never changes.
That's what I was going to say. We're not talking about
I'm not talking about the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm not talking about, the basics that people need to repent of their sins and they need Jesus. I'm talking about the method
and the systems
in which we reach people with the gospel.
Yes.
It has to change.
But as the change happens, even just in the very practical, buildings change, the flow
Everything.
changes, everything changes.
changes.
And so as a leader, You've got to learn to embrace that. Don't push against it. Don't fight against it. Don't have a frustrated attitude, because we get in routine. Like, never get comfortable. And this is one of the things we talk about with our staff. Always. Is just about the time you settle in and you think you are comfortable, things are going to change. And so embrace that. Have a great attitude around it, because attitudes are contagious. The people you lead will feel that. They will be like, you can either help them to be excited about the changes that are coming,
or anxious,
nervous, frustrated, bad attitudes. We don't want to have that. So embrace the change. All right, so let's just recap. You've got to evaluate where you're at, right? You've got to set some short-term goals. You've got to establish keystone habits, and you have to embrace change. But here's what I want you to know. You can do it. We are talking about small little tweaks in your life personally that will prepare you for the season of growth that God has for you as an individual, for the organization that you lead. It is exciting to be a part of something that is growing and moving and grooving. And so you can do it. Don't get frustrated. Don't get, down on yourself. Today is a new day. Let's grow as leaders.
Amen. So as we land the plane today, just want you to know there's a few different platforms where you can consume this content. You can see it on Facebook. You can watch it on YouTube. You can also listen on podcast. And we just want to encourage you, wherever you are consuming this content, please help us to get this content out and share it with others. There's a lot of pastors and church leaders, volunteers that really need encouragement, especially in rural America. And so we're praying that this content will be a blessing to many and that God will use it to encourage and inspire and help people navigate through growth. We are in very, very interesting times in the Church of Jesus Christ. We are in the last days, and God is ramping things up, and we really need to help as many churches as possible grow to get as many people into heaven as we possibly can before Jesus comes back. So help us do that by sharing today's episode. We're so glad that you joined us. We pray blessings over you and your ministry and your leadership, and we cannot wait to see you next time. Thanks for joining us.